So now is the time for the visitor section of the agenda. It is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on a non-agenda issue or item. Anyone wishing to speak should indicate this to staff and wait for your name to be called. Does anyone wish to address the Planning Commission on a non-agenda issue or item? Okay, staff has indicated that nobody has requested to speak on it on the visitor portion. So we can move on to Planning Commission communication. Is there any communication from commissioners? Okay, seeing none. Any staff communication this evening?
Good evening, Chair Nye. Anna Slatinsky, Planning Division Manager in the Community Development Department in Beaverton. I just want to bring your attention to one offering at the city in the disaster preparedness program. The Be 2 Weeks Ready disaster preparedness program is coming to Beaverton in March. Be 2 Weeks Ready is a self-directed public education program to create a community that's more prepared and resilient to natural and man-made disasters. The goal is for households and neighborhoods to have enough supplies to be self-sufficient for 2 weeks, if not longer, in the event of an emergency. For more details or to request a Be 2 Weeks Ready Getting Started presentation for your neighborhood or organization or group, you can email preparedness@beavertonoregon.gov, and you can also find links on the city website. That email address again is preparedness@beavertonoregon.gov. And that's all I have tonight, Chair.
Thank you. So with that, we can move on to new business. The only item on the agenda is the application for the parking lot policy and code project text amendment, case file TA 2023-0001. The Planning Commission's decision to recommend adoption of a text amendment must be based on considerations of 1, statewide planning goals and administrative rules adopted under ORS Chapter 197, 2, applicable federal or state administrative statutes, applicable federal or state statutes or rules, 3, applicable plans and rules adopted by Metro, and 4, the city's comprehensive plan and development code, including development code section 40.85.15. Testimony and arguments and evidence must be directed towards these approval criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that the speaker believes to apply to the application. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to allow the Planning Commission or other interested parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Anyone who submits comments or gives oral testimony has standing to appeal this decision. State and local law require commissioners to make certain disclosures. To these ends, the following questions will be asked. Does any commissioner have a potential or actual conflict of interest? Commissioner Winter?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawler?
No conflicts.
Commissioner Glenwinkle?
No conflict.
Commissioner Akal?
No conflicts.
Commissioner Ellis?
No conflicts.
And Commissioner McCann?
I do have a potential conflict of interest because my firm is working for the Beaverton School District, providing newspaper for Beaverton High School. But I do not believe this will prohibit me from making a decision about the situation that we're reviewing.
Okay. I think your microphone was cut. I had a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, if you want to go back about 30 seconds, we kind of lost your audio for a moment.
All right. Tell me if we're having trouble. I have a potential conflict of interest because my firm, nope. Commissioner Winter is shaking his head.
It's coming in and out for some reason.
It's very garbled.
Okay. Is it all right if I drop off the call and just rejoin here for just a second? See if that helps.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can, yeah.
Okay. I apologize. I will be right back. Hello.
There we go.
All right. Fingers crossed. So what I was trying to say is I have a potential conflict of interest. I am working, my firm is working for the Beaverton School District, providing landscape architecture design services to Beaverton High School. And the Beaverton School District did provide feedback on the case that we're reviewing. I do not believe that my involvement in the project will prohibit my ability to be objective on this, however.
Thank you. And I have no conflict of interest. So does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to participate in this hearing?
Chair Nye, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Just when Commissioner McCann said that, it sparked in my head. I don't think this falls under the area of conflict of interest for me, but looking at that commentary from the Beaverton School District, I'll just say it out loud that not only do I have 2 elementary school age kids in the Beaverton School District, but my wife is the president of the Parent Teacher Council. There's no financial or otherwise connection to that role. It's purely voluntary, but I thought it worthwhile to say out loud.
Thanks. So with that, I will ask one more time. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the right of any commissioner to participate in this hearing? Okay, let the record show no response. The order of the public hearing tonight will be as follows. The city staff will give a presentation followed by questions of staff from the commission. Then members of the public in support of the application may speak for up to 5 minutes each, followed by members of the public opposed to the application can speak for up to 5 minutes each. And last, members of the public who are neither in support nor opposed will then have 5 minutes each to speak. The Planning Commission will then hear final comments from staff. We will now begin with the city staff presentation.
One moment while I share my screen. Okay. Good evening, Chair Nye and Commissioners. My name is Jenna Hughes. I'm an Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. Brian Martin, Long Range Planning Manager, and Elena Sasson, Associate Planner, are also part of the project team and are here tonight as well. The proposal before you tonight is the Parking Policy and Code Project Text Amendment, TA 2023-0001. The city is the applicant. In your materials, you should have a staff report dated February 22nd, 2023, which includes Exhibit 1, Proposed Development Code Amendments, and Exhibit 2, Public Comment received before February 22nd. 2 supplemental memos were also provided to you earlier today with additional public comments received after that date, as well as staff responses. The Parking Policy and Code Project Text Amendment is a direct response to newly amended Oregon administrative rules. In 2022, the state's Land Conservation and Development Commission adopted climate-friendly and equitable communities rules as a response to an executive order from former Governor Brown in an effort to reduce climate pollution. These rules require cities to update their parking development rules by June 30th of this year. The proposed changes in this text amendment would make Beaverton's development code consistent with all state climate rules related to vehicle parking. The state climate-friendly rules include requiring electrical service capacity or conduit for multi-dwelling developments beginning March 30th. And we're also required to reduce or eliminate minimum parking requirements and update parking maximums in areas near frequent transit and in regional and town centers for certain uses listed on this slide. We must also require specific design elements for developments that add more than a quarter acre of surface parking. And in November of 2022, Beaverton City Council gave staff direction to remove all parking minimums citywide and proceed with updating the code to comply with all other state requirements. The applicable approval criteria for this text amendment is in Development Code section 40.85.15. The findings are in the staff report beginning on page 7. Staff finds that the proposed amendment meets all applicable criteria for approval. Consistent with state rules, minimum off-street parking requirements are proposed to be deleted for all uses in all zoning districts citywide, as shown in the parking table in Chapter 60. New language is proposed to comply with climate-friendly and equitable communities parking maximums, which apply only to areas near Max, West, along frequent bus corridors, and in metro regional centers and town centers, such as downtown and near Washington Square. These areas are shown in blue on the map, but they could change in the future. Parking structures and non-surface parking, such as underground or tuck under parking, are not included as part of parking maximum limits. In compliance with state rules, if a development is adding more than a quarter acre of surface parking, they must provide trees and sidewalks along driveways and have one of the following on the site: solar panels, a green public building, or a tree canopy that shades at least half of the parking lot. New multi-dwelling buildings with 5 or more units must provide electric vehicle charging capacity to 40% of residential parking spaces on the property. Developers would not be required to provide the actual charging station, just the conduit system, so charging stations can be installed in the future. Since required vehicle parking is proposed to be removed citywide, the excess parking application is removed, and the parking determination and shared parking applications are updated in Chapter 40 to reflect these changes. References to these applications and required vehicle parking are also updated in other parts of the code as well. The definition of studio is added under dwelling types, since there are specific parking maximum limits for studios in the climate-friendly maximum areas in Chapter 60. The definitions of excess parking and surplus parking are removed, since all references are proposed to be deleted from the code. That concludes staff presentation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission conduct the public hearing and receive all public testimony relating to the proposal. Consider the public testimony and the facts and findings presented in the staff report. Deliberate on policy issues and other issues identified by the Commission or the public, and recommend approval of TA 2023-0001 Parking Policy and Code Project Text Amendment to the City Council with proposed language as written in Exhibit 1. Thank you.
Great. Do commissioners have any questions of staff? Commissioner Ellis.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the information. No groundbreaking questions, just a couple of clarifying ones. The quarter acre threshold, one of the public comments called out that as an interesting thought. Where does that standard come from? Like, what's the meaning of a quarter acre?
Yes, great question. That comes directly from the Oregon Administrative Rules, which specify a quarter acre. So we just took that language directly from the OARs.
Okay, so we don't necessarily know if a quarter acre represents like the average new parking lot installation or something of that nature, so that we have an idea of how many situations that would or would not capture.
I don't know. We did not do analysis of that.
Okay, okay, that's fair. Thank you. And then apologies, I asked a similar question in a previous meeting, so at the risk of sounding redundant here, the electrical capacity call out, I know that that's for conduit only. And this might be out of the scope of this commission, but do we know if the building commission has similar rules on the electrical capacity installed to the site? Because the conduit only is just one small piece of what would need to, eventually be installed. The actual service to the site would have to, the utility service to the site would have to support that as well.
I've got an answer if you want me to jump in. Hi, it's Brian Martin. I'm the long range planning manager for the city. Thanks for your question, Commissioner Ellis. I believe if memory serves, there's already a requirement for some electrical state capacity in the building code, and this actually increases the amount from 20% to 40%, I believe. So I do believe that there's rules or standards elsewhere that establish what that means to provide capacity.
Okay. Being relatively new, I don't know if it's within the scope of this body to make that call out a recommendation, but that would in theory be my next question if I was talking to a building planner to say, do our utility regulations and hookup guidelines also kind of complement that rule of increasing the potential parking capacity? I don't know if anybody's in a position to tell me if I should just stop asking this.
Commissioners, Chair Nye, my name is Elena Sasson. I'm a planner on the current side. And so I do a lot of development review and work very closely with the building division. And what I will say is that it's actually very difficult to make changes to the building code because it's an international building code and we don't really have any control over that. But what I will say is that whenever new buildings do are proposed, planning reviews the plans as well. And so there's always some kind of design review that's required for these buildings, and they have to meet the standards that are in the development code. So we would catch that very early on. The developer would see that requirement in the development code very early on. So I think it's sufficient that it's just in the Beaverton development code and doesn't necessarily need to be in the building code as well.
Okay, yeah, cool. That's super reasonable. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And then the last question, and this does come from the public comment related to the Beaverton School District one. There was a comment in that packet from that person around trees in trenches and how that'll affect the average height and how that might interplay with buses, large vehicles, large turning radiuses, and those kinds of things. When considering the parking lot size and measuring the interior, I'm assuming there's no dispensation for things like public service vehicles, such as a school bus, that would require X amount of space beyond just a regular car. Is that an accurate statement?
So, Commissioner Ellis, I think the requirements we're talking about are along driveways in parking lots, not necessarily the part of the pavement where you're accessing parking spaces. So those are generally designed, I think, for a variety of vehicle types, because those would be the same driveways you're accessing your garbage and your loading and things like that. And a property owner certainly can choose to provide additional width or move the trees away from the intersection if they're concerned about turning radius of the vehicles they know that they're going to be using on the site.
Okay, I guess my concern is more if that's a net new requirement around trenching the trees, moving forward, those would be pre-existing sites that would have to be redeveloped to meet that requirement, as opposed to something new that could certainly be designed around that requirement.
Well, Jenna can correct me if I'm remembering incorrectly, but I think this applies to new parking areas, and that's why I believe the 1/4 acre of new parking area threshold was included is because if you're just adding like 2 spaces, it would be onerous to rejigger your whole parking lot to accommodate these
Right.
things. But with a larger parking lot addition or a new parking lot that's over a 1/4 acre, you have you're not tearing up what you already have and trying to make it fit this rule.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And then so sorry, very last thing for me, and I promise I'll stop talking as much. On the proposed code language item around solar panels, this is from that same public comment from the school district, but there was a question. The proposed language has language that says 0.5 kilowatt per parking space. The question from a member of the public is 0.5 kilowatt per what, per hour, per day. I believe that to be a correct question. The 0.5 kilowatt isn't an active measurement normally in the solars that I've dealt with. So I'm not sure how that's used across other areas of city rules and codes, but they're normally rated as kilowatt per day or per hour. So just a language check. We don't have to solve it now. I was just calling it out. Okay.
Well, I mean the when I've seen measures of solar capacity that you're installing, that's generally the format I see it in, is the number of kilowatts. And it's I looked at it earlier today. I don't have it memorized, but like a 5 kilowatt would be 5,000 watts of generation. Actually, I don't have it in front of me, but
no worries.
I guess the takeaway for us was that it is a standard way that the industry talks about it. I went on the Energy Trust of Oregon website and I think Department of Energy websites and looked at how they refer to them, and that it was consistent with how those are referred to. So I think it's a unit that has an industry meaning, and that we'll be able to apply.
Okay, cool. As long as we're confident in it, it's interesting because kilowatt is a quantity. It's not bound by time, and so in theory, anything can be a half kilowatt if you give it 1,000 years to produce that amount, right? And so that's where the interesting part is. But I mean, if you're confident, then that's great. I just wanted to throw a question on it. All right, thanks.
Thanks. Mr. Winter.
I'm having a tough time with visualizing the 50% coverage for parking lot. Canopy, sorry. I don't know of any. I've been trying to think of a parking lot in the city of Beaverton that has anywhere close to that much tree canopy. Maybe Commissioner McCann can help me with my challenge. But I'm if you put a plot of ground, you put trees around it and some parking aisles, I'm struggling to figure out how that's going to get to be 50%.
So maybe I can ask a question and then we'll let staff answer. But I think the question would be is how is the canopy calculated? Is it only the portion of the canopy that is over the parking? Or is it the entire canopy of those trees at the perimeter? Some of which would be over parking, some of which wouldn't. If you calculate all of the perimeter trees in terms of their total canopy coverage that they can provide.
So
Am I the only one who couldn't hear that?
No,
well,
Okay.
I think
I didn't
Commissioner
understand a word.
Commissioner McCann was talking about how it depends on how it's measured, whether it's just over the paved area or if it's over some of the landscaped areas as well. It depends on how you calculate it, and that is in section 60, 30, 15, 10, C in the code. And the answer is in the first paragraph, it actually describes how the parking lot area is defined. So that's in the language, the paragraph that's next to C. It includes parking stalls, interior parking lot landscaping, and vehicle maneuvering areas, but not loading areas. The landscaping under the trees actually counts as part of toward the 50%. It doesn't have to just be over pavement. The other thing that you can put it over is carports, if it happens to overlap carports in the parking lot. And I think we subtracted, I'm trying to remember if we subtracted the lot area that's covered by solar panels. Oh, we did. If there's a parking lot area covered by solar panels, you would subtract that from the denominator. So the 50% is easier to reach as well. I hope that helps. The answer is it doesn't have to be just over the parking spaces in the driving areas. It can be landscaping, carports as well.
We
Not
can't hear
really,
you, Commissioner. I'm
frankly.
sorry.
It does, that makes. Are you saying, and I'm not being contentious here, I'm just trying to visualize what a 50%, what a individual developer, given this range of choices, and one of them is solar panels. So I'm guessing that it doesn't seem to be, this and that and that. It's either or. But my point being, I'm just having a tough time visualizing what 50% coverage for a parking lot is.
Commissioner,
I understand are you saying that the ground cover is added into the canopy coverage? If you got connect all over the landscaping, is that added into the canopy coverage? I mean, I'm very unsure of what this. That's why I'm asking the question.
Sure. I mean, the language in the code, the draft code, or the proposed amendments defines what the area of parking is.
Got that.
And then on the landscape plan, you'll see trees with circles that represent the maturity at 15 years. So the circles will be like bigger, showing like what they would expect the tree canopy to be 15 years from planting. What's under that, what we're discussing is kind of what's under those circles.
We're not talking about coverage of parking spots.
It's the entire parking area, which also includes parking spots, drive aisles, and landscaping. So if those circles are covering any of those things, or even carports, it still counts toward the 50% to help you achieve the 50%. So plus, I think you might have to imagine a different parking lot design than you're used to. They may actually have to look at some parking spaces, like in the middle of a stretch of parking spaces, and have enough room in an island for 2 or 3 trees instead of just one.
Okay, so help me visualize the Home Depot parking lot with 50% canopy coverage.
Well, it's going to look a lot different than it does today.
That's
and
fine.
That would be for new projects.
That's fine. Explain to me how it will look.
Well,
where are the trees going to be to accommodate 50% coverage?
The applicant is going to have to come up with that solution. And if they can't come up with that solution, that was given to us by state rules.
I understand
Like
that.
this-
I'm not trying to be.
They're gonna have to pick another option. Like they're gonna have to go solar panels, or do something else.
So Scott, it would roughly be the parking stalls would all have to be covered with trees, canopy, and the drive aisles not. Would be like a rough order of magnitude.
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So Brian, if I'm understanding correctly, the calculation does not include the full canopy. It's only what's over the parking area. So call that half of any given tree. 2/3, whatever. Right? Is that what you're saying? So it's not the full canopy.
No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to say the
Okay,
opposite. So-
Well, I think what Commissioner McCann is saying is if the tree is at the edge of the parking area
Right. If
and the
it's a
canopy
perimeter
is
tree
covering the parking plus some landscape adjacent to the parking area.
or a sidewalk or something not the parking lot. Yeah. So otherwise, so I guess I'm hearing it either we can't calculate the whole tree canopy, or you can calculate the whole tree canopy minus solar panels. Got that. But everything else that the tree is covering is fine as long as it's a tree that's either interior planting or perimeter planting associated with the parking lot. Correct?
Close. So
Okay.
it's very
So
complicated.
close.
So like, let's first talk about what we're trying to cover, right? So if you want 50% coverage, you have to have the 100%. What's the 100%? You would subtract solar panels from the 100% because we don't want to shade solar panels, right? So that shrinks your parking area. Say you have, just for simplicity's sake, it's too small. But say you have 10,000 square feet of a parking lot, and 2,000 square feet is covered in solar panels. That would mean you only have to worry about 8,000 square feet as far as your 50% requirement, right? So now you're down to 8,000. So you only have to cover 4,000 square feet of the total parking area, including parking spaces, drive aisles, landscaping, sidewalks, all that stuff. So you're gonna have to show on your landscape plan those trees at 15 years maturity where they're covering 50% of that 8,000 square feet.
So Commissioner McCann, or Commissioner Winter, to your question, at a young tree that's only 15 years post installation, no, this is probably not achievable. That was kind of your initial question. That's a lot of coverage, and if you can only cover what's within the parking and it's not taking in the full canopy into account unless that tree is planted in the middle, then no, you're probably not going to have enough canopy.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Our typical canopy is perimeter and drive and islands. And I'm like, okay, how do we where is 50% going to come anywhere close to that? Or
you have to give up more land to parking if you have a certain number of stalls you're trying to achieve, and so that you can spread it out more and have more planting inside of that parking. So you'll give up more area for parking.
All right. Like I said, I'm just having a tough time visualizing a parking lot with 50% coverage.
And sorry, Brian, and just for clarification, in that clause 10.c.1, individual trees planted within interior landscape islands shall not count toward the canopy. That's correct? That singular interior trees would not count?
Right. That was a specific administrative rule provision as well.
That makes it even more confusing.
You'd have to have two or more in a landscape area where you're planting trees.
I think it just means if you have like a planter strip, they don't want to have like an individual tree sitting by itself in a little planter island. They want like a bigger planter island with multiple trees in it, which is a more typical planting approach anyway for a parking lot. So sorry, Commissioner Glenwinkle is so politely raising her hand. Maybe my only other question here is, what are we trying to achieve with this? Because if the intent is to reduce heat island effect and increase tree canopy, I'm not totally clear why some of these tree canopies don't count. You know, if the idea is to increase the kind of urban forest effect and therefore help with kind of increased temperatures in the city, I'm not sure why it has to cover the parking lot only, or why you can't count more of that canopy, because it's all to the benefit.
Yeah, Commissioner, I'm not sure which part of, sorry, I'm not sure which, what you're talking about when you say it doesn't count. Like, which situation are you referring to?
Perimeter trees. So I guess maybe I'm still really confused, but say in the code, we're being told you've got to make sure you have perimeter trees around these parking lots. So that's fine. If only a part of that canopy, the part that's over what is the parking, counts toward this 50% coverage, it begs the question of, what are we trying to achieve? Like, it becomes discouraging, I think, for folks, because if we're trying to reduce heat island, we're trying to increase urban canopy, reduce stormwater runoff, you know, have more trees. That's all a good thing. I think kind of counting a full canopy of a tree, even if part of it's over the parking and part of it's not, because of how it's planted, would be more encouraging for people to increase tree density in the urban core, because it's still providing a really good benefit.
That was a question, right?
I don't know if it was, maybe it was a frustration.
Yeah, I can't tell if Brian was gonna respond or not.
Yeah, sorry. I understand your concern and question now. But I believe the administrative rules are pretty specific about it being in the parking area, and provided guidance about what that is.
You're saying the administrative rules define what can be counted?
Yeah, let's see. Maybe we could, I
guess all I'm suggesting is, if the tree is part of the requirement for the parking area, then the whole tree should be counted, less anything that's over a solar panel or something where you don't want tree coverage, right? I'm here for the whole tree.
Understood. Let me look at the administrative rules for a minute, and I can try to answer that later.
We can move on to Commissioner Glenwinkle.
Well, don't worry. I was going to add on to your comment, Commissioner McCann. I think it's really important what you noted, that this is going to encourage more parking, because in order to get the coverage percentage, the square footage of parking has to increase. And so I think we all have good intentions with this, but it's important to kind of note, you know, the unintended consequences that are going to come from this. The other question I had for you, Commissioner McCann, is how healthy are these trees going to be if they're planted in an island in the middle of a parking lot? Because from my experience, trees don't thrive in that kind of condition. So we plant them to meet the code, wait for them to get 15 years old to provide that coverage. And by that time, you know, their roots have grown up and over the parking lot, creating trip hazards, and then they get cut down. So is it even viable to plant them where they're wanting them to be planted?
maybe from my expertise, I'd say yes. Although I would encourage city staff to look at Seattle's example of SDOT, where they actually calculate tree plantings and require a particular amount of soil volume that can be achieved by continuous planters, or there are systems. There's a proprietary one called Silvacell that provides kind of continuous soil even under paving areas. To calculate appropriate soil volume per tree. So those are things that maybe it might not change our code today, but might be looked at for future tree code at the city, because that's really how you achieve health, is by providing adequate soil volume for trees.
Thanks for your insight.
I think Anna wanted to chime in on that too.
Good evening, Anna Slatinsky, Planning Division Manager. I just want to provide a little bit of framing for the commission as we approach the rest of the meeting tonight. Right now, we're at the point in the meeting where questions of staff are kind of the item that's that part of the agenda. Once we move on to public testimony, any final comments from staff, and then into commission deliberation, the commission can have a discussion about what they want their recommendation to council to be. And I think that is where it may be fruitful to recognize that you can provide advice to council and express concerns to council about this proposal as part of that recommendation. So I just wanted to kind of just provide a reminder about where we are in the agenda and where there will be an additional opportunity for Planning Commission to discuss what they want their recommendation to council to be in that deliberation part of the agenda.
Thanks. Commissioner Glenn-Michael, did you have any other questions? No. Any other commissioners with questions? I have a question for staff. I may have missed the earlier meeting about parking code. What's driving the maximum parking number? In particular, I was looking at the frequent transit areas. The numbers per unit seem very high adjacent to transit, especially when structured parking doesn't count at all, you know. So we're essentially allowing people to have pretty high parking ratio with a surface parking lot near transit. And had there been discussion with staff on lowering those numbers?
Thank you, Chair Nye, for that question. Those numbers, you know, per residential unit for those areas near frequent transit and in regional town centers, that came directly from the state. Those numbers per unit. And so we did not alter the language. We just used the language that was in the OARs.
Do we have the ability to further reduce them?
Yeah, I think we can be more restrictive, but we have to at least meet the OARs.
So we could, like, per studio, we could say instead of 1.2, we could say like 0.75 or something. We could recommend to council to pick lower numbers if that's what we thought was appropriate. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a chance to look at the administrative rules and the guidance provided to us by the Department of Land Conservation and Development. And it does talk about the expected tree canopy in 15 years being over the parking area or landscaped areas. So to me, it seems like the intention is to count the tree circle that is actually over the parking area, not going like off the site or over the street, outside of the parking area.
Is that a requirement to adopt it in that way? Or
Excellent.
can that,
Excellent.
can
Excellent
we choose to
question.
change the language?
So, the administrative rule says, sorry, I'm trying to go back to it. Tree canopy covering at least 50% of the parking lot at maturity, but no more than 15 years after planting. So I think if our code says things that means the canopy is actually over the parking lot, then we're fine. Now, I keep talking about the guidance. DLCD produced documents for cities to look at to like, basically it's like, this is what we mean, is what they were saying, even though the administrative rule is one sentence, like, here's what we mean. And that is where the lion's share of the words that you see in the proposed amendments are from. Is there additional guidance? And I think 50% of the parking lot is pretty clear that you can't count stuff that's not over the parking lot. But the parking lot perimeter, I'm trying to imagine the design, like the actual design in the world that you're talking about. the parking lot perimeter could possibly be considered part of the parking lot, but not beyond the perimeter.
You could essentially say the boundary of the parking lot includes those trees, the full perimeter of those trees, but you have to use that area as part of your base that you're getting 50% from, is what you're saying, Brian?
Yeah, you can't count it as canopy coverage unless it's part of the parking lot area. And it's over the parking lot. You might get half the tree.
Can I just also add, Chair and I? So Commissioner McCann asked about whether this was like, whether it was required, the 50%. And I'm looking at the administrative rule right now, and it does use that mandatory language. Cities shall provide land use regulations that do this. Developments must provide one of the following, and among that list is the 50% canopy coverage. So it is a mandatory language. It's not a guideline.
Thank you. Any last questions of staff before we move on to public testimony? Okay, seeing none. We will move on to public testimony. We will call testimony in groups, starting with those in favor of the application. Then those opposed to the application, and followed by those neither in favor nor opposed. So now is the time for testimony with those in favor of the application. For those viewing the Zoom webinar, please communicate by using your raised hand feature in your Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press 9 to alert the chair you would like to speak. Let's see. Okay. I will call on James Twilliger first, followed by Omar Ahmed second. So James Twilliger, you may speak. Please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. A question before I begin officially. My testimony is in favor of the proposal as a whole, but mostly is regarding suggesting an amendment. Does that still qualify as for?
I would say yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I'm adhering to the semantics. Thank you. My name is James Terwilliger. I live at 8250 Southwest Sorrento Road. I'm also the chair of the Greenway Neighborhood Area Committee. And it is with that hat on my head that I make the following testimony. The Greenway NAC has reviewed the proposed amendments to the Beaverton Development Code noted in the public hearing notice for tonight's commission hearing meeting. And by unanimous vote at our last meeting, I make the following comments on behalf of the NAC. We understand that the current revisions were motivated by changes at the state level in service of climate-friendly and equitable communities. Any policy revisions, parking or otherwise, made to protect, increase, and enhance tree canopy within the city of Beaverton are a step in the right direction. Metro has a goal of 40% tree canopy coverage, and our current coverage is somewhere around 26%. We have a long way to go, and we are likely already going in the wrong direction. However, several of the code revisions refer specifically to a quarter-acre threshold. A quarter acre may seem small on the scale of an entire city. However, my own house, like so many in the Greenway neighborhood, sits on a quarter-acre lot. My lot alone has 2 giant sequoias, 2 maple trees, and a lot of smaller trees, and that's in addition to a large garden and the house itself. So when I think of a new parking lot slightly smaller than my lot that is exempt from tree canopy or solar power generation requirements under the current proposal, that is where my mind goes. That is what I see being cut down, or at least not planted, and instead covered in impermeable surface. That is a lot of fast and dirty stormwater runoff. That is a lot of sun-baked asphalt. Therefore, we recommend the commission consider having the new restrictions apply to all new parking and remove the threshold entirely. If that's not possible, we suggest at least lowering the threshold significantly to either 3,000 or even 1,000 square feet, specifically in sections 60.30.15 subsection 5E and section 60.5.20 subsection 10. A quarter acre multiplied over many, many new developments is a missed opportunity. And frankly, we need to take every opportunity, all of them, to build our canopy because, and I cannot stress this enough, this is a climate emergency and we have to treat it as such. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Great, thank you very much. Very good testimony. So next I will call on Omar Ahmed. If you could state your name and address for the record once you are unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Omar Ahmed. I live at 12820 Southwest 4th Street. And I just wanted to give testimony broadly on behalf of these proposed measures. I think they're important because they address I think the 2 critical issues that we're facing right now, which are climate change and housing supply. And in particular, we really need to do a kind of all of the above strategy to address these issues. If we don't make dramatic changes in terms of increasing housing supply and decreasing carbon emissions in the near future, we're going to have very, very serious issues. And I think I hope that the city and Metro and the state extend these measures going forward. Thanks.
Great, thank you for taking the time to testify tonight. Does anybody else wish to speak in favor of the application tonight? I am seeing no new raised hands or no messages from staff, so we will move on to testimony in opposition of the application. Again, for those viewing via Zoom webinar, please communicate using your raised hand feature in the Zoom menu bar. If calling in, press 9 to alert the chair you would like to speak. Would anybody like to speak in opposition to the application tonight? Okay, we have none. So last, we have the section for those who are neither in favor nor opposed that would like to speak on this application tonight? Again, if you're calling in via Zoom webinar, please communicate using your raised hand feature. If calling in, press 9 to alert the chair you would like to speak. We do have some raised hands for this one. I will start with Peter. You do not have a last name listed, so you are now muted. You may unmute yourself, or staff will unmute you, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, hello. My name is Peter
Great.
Magaro and live in 10570 Southwest Citation Drive, Beaverton. Lived here for 32 years. I understand that the city is in a position to make transition into parking and housing, but it seems that this is something that should in fact be a transitionary procedure, not a cold date where you stop any required parking and you put a maximum on any parking that developers may want to provide. How do you put in a development? And so we know the new housing standards allow any single family zone property to have multifamily, fourplexes, duplexes, whatever. How do you put in an 8-plex building potentially? Just because you don't provide parking doesn't mean people won't have cars. So where do all those 16 cars go into a residential area? Where do they go? Onto the street? I think it needs to be a little more study in this and see if there's a way to comply with the state requirements and to do more of a transitionary phased process to see how this plays out, because it may not play out at all. So that's my comment, and I'd like the commission to please consider that. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you for your testimony tonight. Next we have Kathy Brumbelow. You could state your name and address for the record once you are unmuted.
Yeah, hi, my name is Catherine Brumbelow, or Katie Brumbelow. And my question, I guess I would repeat what was just said. Some of those concerns, I would echo that need for something more transitionary. Beaverton is a pretty diverse group of people, and I think concerns about how to implement so many different things at the same time. So many housing standards and so many parking standards, and so much in this proposal to address climate change is not very practical yet. Even I have some concerns about just the cost involved in increasing electrical capacity, and that we pass those costs on to people who are in charge of development, and then we make building more unaffordable in a state where we already have a pretty high threshold for homeowners getting their first home. So I guess I would my questions would be about the electrical portion of it. When the state makes changes, they have to address the whole state's concerns. And that's what this has done. The executive order was passed and then it goes out to every municipality. Well, those municipalities look very different. So I think there needs to be time for each municipality to say, look, this is what we need from you, the state, in order to make this happen. Otherwise, it's just going to cause more people to leave because it's getting too expensive to live here.
Okay, thank you. Do commissioners have any questions for Katie? Okay. Seeing none, I will move on to Robert, who has his hand raised. If you could state your name and address for the record once you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Robert Easton. I live at 5476 Southwest Alger Avenue, Unit C3. My question's kind of pertain to how these new regulations will affect existing properties. Would any of these regulations, in particular, it's regulations for electrical vehicles, would they apply to say condominium complexes, for example? Like would we be required to put in a certain number of EV charging stations to comply with these new state mandates?
Yeah, I can answer that. New condominium complexes, if they're multi-story, like apartment buildings, condominiums, then yes, these would apply.
So these apply to existing constructions, even if they've existed for decades.
This is only for new construction.
Okay, only for new construction. Okay, yeah. That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes. Do commissioners have any questions?
And Chair, and I just say it out. I'm saying it out loud for that citizen because I had a hard time understanding this up front as well. Is that the one thing to remember is that these new rules are for conduit and potential capacity for charging stations, not for the charging stations and the electrical service itself. So the installation of the physical charging stations, the boxes, the electrical service, paying for the electrical service, et cetera, those are separate issues that would be handled by the private developers, whether or not they chose to pay for those, et cetera.
Okay. I'm seeing no other raised hands. Does anybody else wish to speak for the application tonight? Katie from below re-raised her hand.
Yes, I just forgot to give my address, so I will do that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's 13475 Southwest 24th Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other new testimony tonight on this application? Okay, seeing none, we will go to final comments from staff.
Thank you, Chair Nye. I do not have any comments. I will give Brian or Anna an opportunity to chime in case they have any last comments.
I have no further comments.
No comments, thank you.
Okay, thank you, staff. So with that, with final comments complete, we will close the public hearing and as standard procedure, I'll randomly poll commissioners to state their conclusions on the application. I will start with, yes, just who's on my screen, Commissioner Winter.
It's an interesting proposition, let's put it that way. I mean, I suspect that there are some developers out there that are going to love not having to have account for parking. And I think there are some citizens who are going to go crazy because of developers don't put parking in their development. So I hope we're not rolling problems downhill. And I think this is going to be this may end up being a full employment bill for people in the tow cars. But, you know, talk about the unintended consequences of no parking. I'm sensitive to the fact that there are some situations that we already have in the city of Beaverton where we already have more cars and not enough parking. And I think this is going to exacerbate that. But since this is not something that was triggered by the city of Beaverton, I'm not sure what response we have. I'm just looking down the highway, I'm looking down the road and in the transition period, as discussed by several citizens, that it might be challenging with that. Fewer cars on the road and more used to walking and public transit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But other than that, I think staff has done a good job of basically taking what the state has said, this is what we will do, and incorporating it into what our code requires.
Thank you. Commissioner Ellis.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I'm in a similar boat as Commissioner Winter. I appreciate and understand the point and purpose of the regulation. I'm worried that for the goals of increasing accessibility for folks who don't have it currently versus the unintended or I don't know if it's unintended, but the side effect of further large development that will drive car volume without necessarily lowering the accessibility barrier for folks who actually need it. I'm thinking about developments like in Cooper Mountain out in your my neck of the woods, where the public transit center to come down this way versus Central Beaverton is not necessarily strong enough to support the idea of no car households. But if we were to do Cooper Mountain with no parking, that'd be a sight to see. Not in a great way. But I think that the aims are admirable. My specific pieces of feedback related to the questions that I've asked so far, I think are probably in line with some of the public comments. I would love to see more data on the 1/4 acre rule, aligned with one of the pieces of feedback from the Greenway NAC chairman, that not understanding if 1/4 acre is a common, is it above common, is it below common size for parking lots in the city, and whether this is actually helping, if these regulations are helping by capturing enough of the volume. I'd love to see data on that. And then going back to the schools piece, I'd also love to see more of the issues that the schools public comment from Beaverton School District raised, which I would extend to other public service style buildings in general. I'm picturing traffic zones for things like school buses, but also for things like ambulances and other service oriented areas. I'd love to see some of those things probably addressed or bolstered to make it easier for those folks to do business without the eventual passing on the cost via things like school bonds or county bonds, having to pay to meet some of these requirements. So I'd love to see more study in those two directions specifically. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at on it.
Great. Commissioner Waller.
Yeah, I mean, we've received a lot of, I think, important testimony. Some of it, I think, probably would have been better directed to the promulgation of these rules at the state level, because I think a lot of the issues that were raised are fall directly on what the language meant and now the city is picking it up, and our role is really to try to take the state mandate and kind of just tweak it around the edges to make it fit into the Beaverton code. So we are our hands are tied, I think, to a large extent to answer some of the questions, and maybe some even the policy questions that have come up in the testimony tonight and in letters. Is this really going to create more affordable housing situations? Is this really going to address some of our climate related issues? And I think those are all viable questions that I'm not sure we really have the bandwidth with our limited amount of discretion available to us in this decision-making process to really answer those questions effectively. But I am very interested in the comment about looking for an opportunity to maybe expand upon the canopy. I know we talked a lot about, is that really realistic to talk about a 50% canopy on a parking area? But I think when we talk about generally trying to think about climate related code changes and our tree code change, maybe this that might be a better opportunity to think about expanding the parking lot requirement and canopy cover and within the context of our tree code amendments that might be coming forward in the future. But given all that, I concur with a lot of the comments from formerly received from our commissioners. But I do believe, given our limited discretion, that we need to pass this along to our city council with a recommendation of approval, because I think staff has done a good job in formulating the answer to this state mandate.
Okay, Commissioner Glenn.
Yeah, I concur with all the other commissioners. I think staff's done a great job making the state requirements fit into the Beaverton code. We are very limited in what we can do tonight. And so, you know, I do recommend approval, but my concerns with it are, again, unintended consequences of eliminating parking, because as the public comments have stated, you know, people drive cars, and if you're building a new apartment complex with no parking, people will park on the street, and that's going to impact the neighborhood. And I'm not convinced that it really will lead to more affordable housing. I think it's going to lead to larger parking lots so that they can just meet the coverage requirements. So I think it will create a demand for parking structures, for whatever that's worth. But yeah, those are my concerns.
Thank you. Commissioner McCann.
Thank you. I echo what I'm hearing our fellow commissioners say, and particularly Commissioner Lawler. I appreciate what you say about the limited amount of ability we actually have to change this, which I personally find a little frustrating. I think the goals are all good and the aspirations are all good with the changes. It just seems like that there are probably some problems that are being created in here that with a slightly different definition of a word here and there, we might be able to get a better outcome. So that part's a little frustrating, but I agree that this is probably something that we should recommend to approve to council.
Commissioner Call.
I also concur with the other councilors, you know, having no parking can create issues, but we're limited to, you know, what we can say about it. So I can concur and approve to move forward.
Great, thank you. And I concur with my fellow commissioners. I would add that I strongly believe we should lower the maximum parking for the transit areas to 1 per studio, 1.5 for the other units, which is still a lot of surface parking. I think we should be really encouraging structured parking when we're close to the transit areas. But otherwise, I agree. So with that, do we have a motion?
Sure. I move to recommend approval to City Council of TA 2023-0001 for the parking policy and code project as with the language as written in Exhibit 1.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner McCann moved, Commissioner Lawler seconded. Is there any discussion? I would like to offer a friendly amendment. I would like to amend it to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would like to include that staff and council consider the 1/4 acre section and lowering that increment. I would addressing the school comments further, lowering the parking maximum close to transit to one per studio and 1.5 per other units, and put more study and thought into the tree canopy coverage and see if there's any legal room for us to adjust that standard further. That's my friendly amendment. I actually don't know the process after. I think you have to accept the amendment or decline the amendment. Is that correct, Steve? Or do we vote?
Yeah, we need to get a second. So you basically have moved for an amendment. So we need to get a second before taking a vote on the amendment.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, Commissioner Ellis seconded. So then we vote on the amendment. Wait, sorry.
That's correct. Vote on the amendment. And then if it's amended, then you can vote on the final.
Okay.
As
So,
amended.
Okay.
Can
Any
we-
discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, can we discuss?
There you go. But when you were
Any
going to run right
discussion
over
on
that.
the amendment? Commissioner Winter.
Could you clarify, please,
Yes.
Yes.
Clarify what?
what you want? What
Oh,
your
yeah,
amendment
maybe-
states? You kind of rambled.
The sections.
I have 4 bullets for staff and council to consider lowering the 1/4 acre threshold that this whole parking sections apply to further address the school comments regarding buses and maybe how that would apply to public safety vehicles on other types of projects.
So that's one bullet.
That's the second bullet.
Okay.
Third bullet is lowering the maximum parking close to transit to 1 per studio and 1.5 for other units. And fourth bullet is to put more study and thought into the tree canopy coverage and how it's calculated and see if there's any room from the state requirement to make it more reasonable.
Are we able to break these up? Because I would be in favor of 2 of them, but would not be in favor of 2 of them. Are we able to split, or is it all or nothing?
These are just recommendations.
These are just recommendations.
We're not making a final decision. Just
But I
saying,
guess
asking city council to think about these.
we could vote in the amendment, and if it doesn't pass, we can split it up. If that works.
Can we hear Commissioner Glenn Rico's concerns?
Yeah, I definitely agree with providing more time to study and address concerns by BSD. I wouldn't be ready to lower the threshold, acreage threshold yet. I wasn't prepared to really analyze that tonight. And then lowering the maximum too. I'm not comfortable approving that right now. But I do think if we can get more time to study it even more, especially how many public comments we got, I would definitely agree with that. If we can have more time, that would be great.
Okay. Should we vote?
Sorry, I'm just going to add another question. Maybe this is a Robin question. If essentially our recommendation is that staff should spend some more time looking at some of these things, then how are we recommending approval to council?
Yeah, that was going to be my question too. It wasn't clear to me if you wanted staff to come back with a revised proposal, considering these changes. And I just see Brian as maybe has some comments on the timeline too. So Brian, if it's okay for Brian to also chime in.
I think so.
Thank you, Chair. The state requires us to have these codes in effect by June 30th. dates. The city council, Jenna can help me. The city council hearing is scheduled for May 2nd. Is that correct? Yeah, okay.
Correct. The first reading is April 18th and the hearing is May 2nd.
So we have very little time to do original research and like analyze the pros and cons of different proposals. We can certainly lay out options for the council, but it would be, we don't, time to do a little mini project, I guess, in a way that we're going to be, I feel like we did a thorough job. And that would apply more to the quarter acre threshold and maybe the school public safety thing, although we can check to see what our transportation geniuses can tell us about that.
Yeah, personally, I was not asking for you to bring it back to Planning Commission, purely to provide further thoughts and share our concerns with council on these items. Commissioner Ellis has a question.
I know that I seconded the package of 4 bullet points, but I'm wondering if it would make more sense because some of these are two-way doors, some of these are one-way doors. So for instance, we should potentially have a more firm opinion on, as an example, the like the max parking ratio versus something along the lines of the bus transportation piece, because outside of things that are currently in construction at the school district level, like that's not an insanely urgent thing that could be reduced or changed. And so we might want to think about, out of the 4 items, to run through them individually and say, which of these are we asking for action back on? And I'm just saying out loud, I'm not recommending this is what we should do, or I'm not recommending specifically this, but we should say, for instance, on the quarter acre bullet point, do we approve it as it stands? And do we also request staff to come back with further study on should it have been lowered? So something like that. So we can do a two-way door versus a one-way door decision on these 4 bullet points.
I guess I don't.
It sounds like it probably would be better to split this motion up into 4 parts, because I think that's where people are struggling. There's some are in support of some of them, not all of them. And so I think that would probably be a good idea, is to split it up into 4 parts and take a vote on each piece.
Okay, I will withdraw my original amendment and I will offer 4 separate amendments, starting with number 1 for staff to reconsider the 1/4 acre threshold, specifically lowering the threshold to something less and currently undefined to be proposed by staff. Do we have a second? If there is no second, the motion fails.
I second, and apologies for being difficult, I second the thought. I'm just not sure that language works for an amendment. Like what are we actually asking of them? Are we saying that we don't want to approve the quarter acre item at all, or do we just want to be able to see, what the data tells us?
The quarter acre is part of the state statute.
Okay.
So I don't think we have the best we can do is lower it. We can't drop it. We can't increase it.
Right.
So.
Okay, perfect. So the amendment language that you're saying is for the staff to return to the commission with an analysis and an impact of lowering the threshold to any one of certain levels underneath a quarter acre.
It would be doing the research and taking it to council. It will not come back to us.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
So do we have a second?
I'll second
it. Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. All right. I'll second it.
Okay. Commissioner Ellis seconded. So I will, any discussion on this motion further? Okay. Seeing none. we will do a vote by roll call. I will try to go in order of the staff's script to see if it makes it easier for them. Commissioner Winter,
Nay.
Commissioner Lawler,
Yay.
Commissioner Ellis,
Yay.
Commissioner Akal,
Yay.
Commissioner Glenwinkle,
Nay.
Commissioner McCann,
Nay.
and I vote yay. And I did not get that count.
4-3.
Okay.
4-3.
4-3, it passes. Correct. Okay, thank you for your help tonight. So motion passes 4-3. Second proposed amendment is to request staff to review the school comments further and consider what accommodations may be proposed for buses and public safety vehicles. Is there a second on that motion?
I can second.
Okay, Commissioner Akal seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, see none. Another vote by roll call. Commissioner Winter?
Nay. Nay. No.
Okay, Commissioner Lawler?
Nay.
Commissioner Ellis?
Yay.
Commissioner Akal?
Yay.
Commissioner Glenwinkle?
Aye.
Commissioner McCann?
Aye.
And I vote nay. So, but motion passes 4-3. I will proffer a third amendment to lower the maximum parking at close to transit from 1.2 to 1 per studio, and lowering it from 2 to 1.5 for other units. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner McCann seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, Commissioner Winter,
No.
Commissioner Lawler,
Yay.
Commissioner Ellis,
Nay.
Commissioner Akal,
Nay.
Commissioner Glenwinkle,
Nay.
Commissioner McCann,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well, but the motion passes, or excuse me, motion fails 4-3. So fourth amendment to put for staff to study and put more thought into the tree canopy coverage to see if there's more flexibility in how it is measured, because it seems too high, and make a potential new recommendation to council regarding that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Glenwinkle seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Winter,
Aye.
Commissioner Lawler,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Akal,
Aye.
Commissioner Glenwinkle,
Aye.
Commissioner McCann,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So that motion passes unanimously. So, any discussion on the original motion that McCann proposed? Okay, seeing none, we will now vote on the original motion with the amendments attached.
Sorry, I guess I do
Yes.
have a question. So if we've already voted on these 4 pieces, it's kind of distorted what we're voting on now. So how does
Yeah,
that work?
do I need to make a new motion?
No, we didn't the original motion still stands and I just amended those things to it.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. I'll do a vote by roll call. Commissioner Winter,
Aye.
Commissioner Lawler,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Akal,
Aye.
Commissioner Glenwinkle,
Aye.
Commissioner McCann,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So the Planning Commission's decision will be memorialized in land use orders that will be provided to all parties that provided oral and written testimony. The Planning Commission's decision will be forwarded to City Council. City Council will hold a hearing and make final decisions on this application. If you would like to appeal the decision, you must appeal in accordance with the applicable provisions in the Beaverton Development Code and the rules of the Land Use Board of Appeals. With that, we are adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Thank you, everyone who provided testimony tonight. And commissioners.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.